Fluvanna County High School, I am the Carpentry and Construction teacher, but our program's gone a little bit further than that in recent years, and we've gotten to the point now where we produce our own lumber. We have our own portable sawmill, we have a kiln that we dry it with, and we cut for grade, which means that we end up with a lot of timbers in the center. And so my Carpentry 2 kids have learned how to timber frame, and we've built some timber frame structures over the years. I went to Virginia Tech and I have a degree in forestry, and honestly and truthfully I applied that when I was very young. I owned my own logging company for a while and produced timber, and then I kind of drifted away from that and did a bunch of other things and ended up coming back into teaching. And so you know, really a lot of the skills that I have revolve around like home repair, things that I had to do. I always had an interest in woodworking, and so I'd always had my own little shop that I kind of worked in, and I think that's pretty much it. Our milling process is we cut for grade. A lot of sawmills don't do that. They cut for volume. What we tend to do is all the good boards in a log are coming off the edges of the board, and the center of the tree is kind of like waste. It's where the tree has been compressed. It's under a lot of pressure, and so when it gets released, you can see it's already starting to split and crack. So we basically box the heart, and we end up with timbers. I guess process, we have logs, we have a small winch that pulls those logs up onto these ramps and up onto this bed, and then we have a Wood Miser portable sawmill. It's an LT15. It will cut up to a 36-inch wide log that's about 16 feet long. We tend to, handle mostly 8-foot material because our kiln only will handle 10, and inside of our shop, our storage area can only accommodate 8 and 10-foot stuff. So we don't cut a whole lot of 16-foot stuff, which is, the common size in most sawmills in and around Virginia. This particular log here was cut by a local tree surgeon, and because of the proximity of getting it out from where it was, they couldn't leave it in an 8-foot or a 16-foot log, so no local sawmill will really want it. But we don't care. We'll mill it at 6 or 7 feet and get a lot of lumber out of it. Now, if you zooms in and gets a close look at this log, this is a red oak log, and what you can see is this log has been sitting for quite some time. It has quite a bit of stain in it, and it's been stained through. Some people will say that that's a defect. Other people kind of like it. When I get deeper into this log, that'll probably disappear. It's probably only in the outer edges. So one of them has to do with length. Is it the proper length? The other thing is, how many clear faces does it have? Logs get graded the same way lumber does, based on, the 4 faces of the log. Even though it's round, you're looking at the 4 sides and how many defects it has. This log has no defects. We also have to be careful. We have to watch out for nails. If this was in somebody's yard, and it was cut down by a tree surgeon, it might have had a swing in it. Somebody might have had a clothesline in it, multiple things. So we take a real close look at these before we cut them. So whether or not a log is sufficient, number one has to do with how fresh it is. Has it been sitting around for a long time? Are its faces good? And the real criterion is, what are you going to do with it? What do you want to get out of it? Whether it's sufficient. Like for instance, these beams you see right here. These came out of some loblolly pine trees that were probably not very big at all. In fact, the only thing I could get out of that tree was this. If you were trying to cut lumber from those logs, you would say that those logs were worthless. But if you wanted to get those timbers out of those logs, well, they're perfect for that. So it has more to do with what you're trying to get than than what's the perfect log. So Dave can come and take a look up here. We got some other logs up on the thing over here. You can kind of take a look at it and get an idea. I mean, this is a really good quality white oak log, and so is this. This is a pretty decent white oak log. It's really big, but if you take a real hard look at it and come over here on this end, you can see it has a big burl knot down in here on it. So what I'll do is, when we cut that log, we'll make sure that that portion of the log will be on the edge of the boards that are being cut so that we can just remove them off of the edge as opposed to them being in the face of the board. So there are some things that we can do to make a log yield better lumber than, than it just wants to give to you. You kind of have to take a look at it. This is a real nice example of a decent white oak log right here. It's got a couple of knots in it right here and here on this face, but that's just on one face. So when we cut this one, we'll make sure that the edge of the board is right here. We don't want to cut it with the face of the board right here. Then we get that big old knot right in the face of the board. That'd be kind of ugly. Before I got here, they would have to buy the lumber, and the programs that the federal government's offering to school districts in terms of grant money won't provide them with money to buy consumables, which lumber is one of them. And so what basically we're doing is we're getting these logs donated, we're milling them and we're drying them, and we don't have to buy any lumber. If Mr. Small scans out there right now, there's about 6,000 or 7,000 board feet of mixed hardwood lumber sitting up underneath that shed. If you went and bought all that at a lumber yard, the minimum some of that stuff would cost would be $3 a board foot. There's like $18,000 worth of lumber sitting there. Basically, it came from all these donated logs. Now, you might say, well, look at that big building and look at that sawmill. 5 years ago, we bought that sawmill. We invested $12,000 in it. We got about $10,000 in the building. So we have $22,000 worth of equipment and investment. But right now, we got 18 grand sitting under there in lumber, and we've gone through that much lumber in the past 4 or 5 years with our students building things and projects. So it's more than paid for itself. So it's been a tremendous benefit, from a cost standpoint. Oh, I enjoy carpentry for a multitude of different reasons. I really like wood. I mean, all kinds of wood, any species of wood. I like the look of it. I like the feel of it. I like working with it, the medium to work with it. The other thing is it allows me to get outdoors. I get to work with my hands. At the same time, I get to work with my brain. It's a great trade for young people to get into. I believe is carpentry. Got to be smart about it. But I love it. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, is because I like it so much. Find something that you like to do, and you'll never go to work a day in your life. In my own home, my wife and I, we had this area in our house that was like separated by columns. And so we were going to build like some kind of shelving storage area unit in it. And what we did was we closed it off on the back side to make it look like it was a cabinet. And then on the other side, it faced our bedroom. So I made it so that it had drawers in it also. So it kind of like served a multi-purpose. And that was a pretty cool experience because it was not only woodworking, it was creative, and it fit in with what we were trying to do. It solved the problem. Carpentry is kind of dangerous, and you kind of like to try to stay out of high stress situations. So what I tend to do is whenever I feel or sense any kind of stress levels coming on, whether they're coming from me, my students, or whatever, it's time to just shut everything off, shut all the equipment off, and just back off for a few minutes and find out what's the problem, what's going on. It's kind of like, too, from a safety standpoint, I've hurt myself a couple of times in carpentry, and I can tell you this, I knew it was going to happen. I sensed it was going to happen before it happened. And now that I've gotten older, I know when those times are coming, and I shut it down so that I don't get hurt. You kind of know. You get this feeling. You're saying to yourself, "Man, I shouldn't do that." And now I just shut it off, and I say, "Yep, you're right. I shouldn't do that." That's kind of an experiential thing. Well, for me, I'm a cabinet builder. I'm not a framer. I'm not a framer of homes or that kind of carpenter. And so when you're building cabinetry, the big challenge, honestly and truthfully, is dimensioning. You got to have good math skills. I have a lot of students that lack those math skills because their math classes in high school don't force them to apply anything. And when they come to me, they have to apply it. So, for instance, if somebody wants to build a coffee table, there's a certain height that a coffee table needs to be. There's a certain width to its length ratio that it needs to be, otherwise it will look, it won't look right. There's this thing out there called the Fibonacci sequence, which is like a natural order of a mathematic progression that most things that we look at that are pleasing to our eye, it follows that pattern. So I try to make sure that when I build something, it's within that range that the Fibonacci sequence tells me it should be, so that it won't look too tall or too wide or too thick or too thin for whatever it is you're attempting to do. And that's the challenging part for me.